Good evening. We'll start with the complete psychology preparation under our special unique method of PTQ. Good evening. We'll start with the complete psychology preparation. What this PTQ is, prepare through questions. We have already divided complete psychology syllabus under different blocks, and under the block 1 is our chapter introduction along with the research methods of psychology, and your measurement of individual differences in paper 2. These are the chapters we have clubbed under your block 1. In this block, we were doing our first chapter, introduction, where we divided the syllabus into different parts. And to cover the whole syllabus, we are taking up certain questions. If we go through the concepts which are inherent in the question, the content which addresses the question entirely, we'll be able to cover the whole syllabus. We'll be able to have prepared questions for at least 4 out of 5 questions which you have to answer in the examination will be prepared beforehand, and that is the secret sauce of getting your 300 plus marks. The secret does not lie in studying that bulky set of notebooks, so many fundamental books, although I suggest you to read these things, NCERT. I suggest you to study your Baron or Cicerelli. I suggest you to read Smaracalso. Apart from that, what we'll be covering? We'll be covering the notes, we'll be covering the dimensions of psychology, new trends, applying psychology, where we'll be interlinking the topics of paper 1 with each other. We'll be interlinking the topics of paper 2 with paper 1. The smart strategy will be followed. So we had done a question which addresses the concern, the main question which has been asked by UPSC again and again. Psychology is a science critically examined. So in that, what makes psychology a science? Those ideas we have already discussed in your previous lecture. In this lecture, we'll be covering our limitations according to which psychology cannot be categorized as natural science or a pure science. What are those factors which limit psychology from being categorized as pure or natural science? What are those factors? The factor number 1, the limitations we are talking about. Factor number 1 is, what are we studying? Our concern, our study matter is what? Human behavior. Now you look at the human behavior. Human behavior, as I see many of you have joined now, so I'll just repeat. We were doing the first block. In the first block, we were doing introduction, research methods of psychology, and measurement of individual difference. First chapter is introduction. We divided the introduction chapter in different parts of the syllabus. Then to address the whole parts of the syllabus, we divided or devised certain questions. If we address them, then we'll be able to cover the whole syllabus entirely. And the one question was, psychology is a science critically examined. We have already addressed those factors which make psychology a science. Now we are covering the limitations. The first limitation is that the study matter or the object of study as far as psychology as a discipline is concerned is human behavior. Now human behavior is both multivariate. You will see this term many a times, multivariate. What does it mean? It depends on many factors. If you have to define the human behavior, there are various perspectives, which we'll see in the next section. Next question. What are the perspectives? There are biological perspectives, there are socio-cultural perspectives, or biological factors, socio-cultural factors which shape our behavior. We are determined by our biology or not? Yes, the answer is yes. We are determined by the socio-cultural factors or not? Yes. Biological, socio-cultural. Are we defined by our environment in which we are? Environmental factors. Are we defined by certain kind of personality which is shaped during our developmental phase? Personality factors. Yes. So the complexity and the dynamism of human behavior makes it next to impossible to study it objectively. Very simple but precise analysis. Then the human behavior not only consists of the overt phenomena, overt, but you can see, observe, observable, measurable. As the behaviorist perspective said that behavior or the discipline of psychology should study what? Something which is observable and measurable, quantifiable. That is why they focused on the experiments. That is why they said that it is dependent on environmental determinism. Environment, the response, the stimulus in the environment will define our response or our behavior. That we'll see later on. Likewise, they also said that the complex human behavior can be reduced to small pieces of behavior which can be shaped and changed to bring a complex behavior. So something which is overt, apart from that, the covert behavior, the mental processes, as we defined psychology as scientific study of human behavior, overt, measurable, quantifiable behavior, and the covert behavior which consists of mental processes. Subjective dimensions, as Sigmund Freud enumerates that there are factors which are determined by the psychic forces. We are driven by our psychic makeup, or biological also, you can simplify it to say that it's biological, the psychic forces. Something which is hidden, unconscious forces. Not only the conscious, because according to Sigmund Freud, the conscious part is just the tip of the iceberg. Largely, our behavior is driven by the early childhood experiences, id forces, which are censored by ego and superego. Ego, which shows us the reality, something which is achievable, something which is possible. Superego shows that the social norms of morality are these. So you cannot say that id wants this and you are going to satiate your id, because id forces will be wanting what? Id forces will be driven by the dark forces of humanity, which are shaped by biological urge. Food, shelter, food, shelter, sex. These are the things that defines the id forces. Security concerns. How your psychic makeup is done is dependent upon your early childhood experiences. Early childhood experiences. You see this. How your early childhood has been. When you were actually not aware about your needs and urges. When you unconsciously and subconsciously got attracted towards the opposite gender of your parent, the parent of opposite gender, determining your Oedipus complex, Electra complex. So these are the things which were hidden that determines our behavior, given by psychoanalytic and then psychoanalytic forces, psychoanalytic perspective given by Sigmund Freud, and then neo-Freudian approach, Horney, Sullivan, all these, Adler. What do they say? Psychodynamic approach. They contributed to it. I'm just giving you the perspective so that you keep on revising these things. So you see the overt and covert, both dimensions explain the behavior. So it becomes multivariate and complex, and since it becomes multivariate and complex, the objective analysis of it is none to impossible, next to impossible. It is next to impossible objectively analyze and measure. And what is the main theme of psychology? Prediction and control. These two things. P for prediction, C for control. PC, Priyanka Chopra approach. PC, prediction, control. If you can predict a behavior, control a behavior, then you are adhering to the science of psychology. Psychology's main focus is to predict the behavior, to control the human behavior. Why do we study psychology? So that we can predict somebody's behavior. If you ask a random person, why are you studying psychology? Most of them will say, we want to understand the human personality. We want to understand the unconscious forces. We want to understand how and why do we lie. Because later on you'll realize on my YouTube channel itself, MJ_IAS, on this channel itself, you'll see a case study, a real case study, done by me only, regarding the pathological lying. Not categorized as a disorder, but a deviant behavior as per social norms, and they have great potentiality to become criminals, especially the cyber criminals. Fresh, unique, innovative, original case study. Watch out on this YouTube channel. You'll find it. Earlier we have uploaded the Freudian slip. Freudian slip, your unwanted slip of tongue while you uttered someone else's name, uttered somebody which you did not want to convey, but it gave a peep into your unconscious. What is actually your unconscious made up of? What actually are you thinking again and again? Your latent interest is deciphered, discovered by your Freudian slip. There are many other things we'll be talking about. Psychology of money we'll be talking about. We'll be talking about the criminal psychology, the forensics and all on my channel only. So you have understood the topic of study is human behavior, complex, multivariate, not able to analyze objectively, very hard to predict and control, which is the focus of psychology. That's why we cannot categorize psychology as a pure science. Second point is your about the covert dimension only. When you are covering the covert dimension, like thinking and problem solving, how do you solve your problem, or your certain of the creative dimensions also. Can I have a controlled experiment for these things? Can there be a controlled lab setup, laboratory setup? Can we divide people into two groups, control group, experimental group, and then conduct these experiments, or measure your ability to think unique solutions, novel solutions in a particular situation? The answer is no. Then for that, what do we need to do? We cannot go ahead with a quantitative study. See, this quantitative study is not possible. So what will we go ahead with is your qualitative study. And you know, the major focus of psychology, the major concern of psychology revolves around this qualitative study. You know why? Because most of the experiments in psychology are these: non-experimental research or quasi-experimental research. So that requires qualitative study. What is the qualitative study? Questionnaire, case study, survey, etc. Two of the important qualitative studies which are mentioned in your syllabus, which are very, very important, are your GT, grounded theory approach, and second is your FGD, focus group discussion. Grounded theory approach, in which the researcher goes with an open mind, collects data. What is the data? Data is not that go and collect Bitcoin. The data is your questions. You will ask qualitative questions regarding the attitude, opinion and belief of a person. That is your data. Then from the data generated, you will frame a theory. From data to theory, the theory is grounded in the data. The researcher goes with the open mind, collects data and finalize it in terms of a theory or a hypothesis. So that is called your grounded theory approach. The steps followed will be covering, but you also remember this is OAS, open coding, axial coding and selective coding. What are these? We'll cover later. Just sprinkling the fodder for you to think and generate that curiosity. If you want to score well, that open coding, axial coding, selective coding, when I told you this, go Google, Wikipedia, whatever you go, and now you have the ability of cheap chat GPT also, Bard, chat GPT, all this you can use for free. Use it, man, use it. It's for you. The technology, the technique is for you to become smarter. There is no smartness in reading 5,000 pages of psychology and end up scoring 250. Read 200 pages of psychology and score 300 plus. That's what smartness is. So the FGD, focus group discussion, 10-12 people gathered at one place to do a discussion of around 90 minutes regarding a social problem. There is a moderator who breaks the ice, who has a opening question, opening remark. First of all, they will be gathered. The opening question will be given to these people. All of them will be asked the opening remarks. Once the ice has been broken, the further probing will start. In the probing, various perspectives will be generated. These perspectives will be assimilated, interpreted by the moderator, and finally a solution will be reached. Focus group discussion, but again qualitative, not quantitative, qualitative. And these things are done. Qualitative research is done to solve a problem. Applied research, not pure research. What is pure research? Basic research. Basic research for the fun of research, as most people do. PhD is being done by the people who have that, who are interested to do the research for the fun of it. Okay, but applied research is to solve a problem, a particular problem. If you have to solve a particular problem, go for the applied research. Okay, so here we have seen the second point was that our first thing, human behavior complex and multidimensional. Covered dimensions are also there. To cover the covered dimensions, qualitative approach is followed. Since it is qualitative, not quantitative, since it is subjective, not objective, we cannot call it a scientific method. Second point, we are discussing why we are not calling psychology a science. Then there are practical and ethical issues. Practical issues. We cannot conduct experiment or we cannot conduct research for each and every human behavior. There are certain limitations to it. Can you conduct an experiment how a person with a broken skull or a damaged brain part thinks? What is the effect of the damaged cerebral cortex? The damaged cerebral cortex now tell me how this experiment will be done. Will you break somebody's skull, break the cerebral cortex, or do some surgery, and then after that you will see how the person thinks? What kind of wave patterns are under the brain of such a person? Practically not possible. Is it ethical to see or do the research? Suppose you are given a research statement, problem statement. Marriage tendency of UPSC aspirants. Now, is it ethical to go and ask certain questions which may be related to their private domain? There are certain things which their parents are deciding. If somebody is marrying just for the cadre change, it is their choice. If somebody, after studying so much of psychology, so much of humanity, so much of general studies, still marries a guy or a girl from their own caste, it is their choice. Can we impose our thought or do a probing research into these dimensions? Is it ethical? Or going further, Can we do a research, because psychology has got all the dimensions under its arm? Can we do a research like the mating behavior of, say, Jarawa tribe, the aboriginal tribe? How do they, what is their mating pattern now? Is it at all ethical to peep into such private issues? The answer is no. So psychology, despite the fact that having a broad horizon of study, has certain limitations also. We cannot study each and everything which comes under the umbrella term of human behavior. Limitations. So apart from that, there are many other factors. We have covered the third dimension, the fourth dimension being the regarding the scales which we use. Scales used in psychology, unlike the scales used in the natural sciences, are not ratio scales. Absolute zero is missing. There is no absolute zero. You cannot say that somebody's IQ is 0 or somebody's EQ is 0. No, that's not possible. We are just measuring it relatively. Relative scale is there. Relatively, this person is superior. We don't use ratio scales. We cannot say that the person with an IQ of 130 is 2 times more intelligent than a person with IQ of 65. Can we say so? The answer is no. So what do we use here is the ranking scale, the rank of a person, or the interval scale. Somebody's IQ is in this range, 110 to 120, or his rank in the class as far as IQ part is concerned is 8th out of 100 students. These things we can talk about. So largely, if we just compare all these 3-4 points, then what is the conclusion? The conclusion is that, as we have already summarized under our 4 points, the 4 points OSAU: objectivity, skepticism, A, accuracy, and U, universality. These are the points under which we call psychology a science. Psychology is a science because of this. It has objectivity, it has skepticism, accuracy, and universality. But if we compare it with the points which we have covered now, or I'll give you 3 important points: O, E, M. What is O? Ontology. Ontology means the subject matter of your study, and that is human behavior. We have seen it is complex, multivariate, and that's why we cannot say it is an objective criterion. Then epistemology. What is epistemology? How valid are your studies? When we say valid, what does it mean? What is the universal application? Now see, we say Yerkes-Dodson theory. Your optimal arousal gives you this is arousal, this is the performance on a task. When When the arousal is optimum, the performance is highest. This is the Yerkes-Dodson theory. But since psychology is the study of individual differences, can you, with your commonsensical analysis, tell me that two people, Rahul Gandhi and Narendra Modi, for these two people, if you plot this graph, will the shape of the graph will be same? It is quite possible that Rahul Gandhi will be able to achieve the optimal performance or maximum performance at this level of arousal. And that is also possible that Narendra Modi achieves that level of performance at this arousal level. These two curves are different, this being for RG, this being from NM. Possible? So, when we say we have universal theory, is it applicable for each and every person? The answer is no. Unlike the sciences, unlike the physical sciences, natural sciences, where when we say we have a formula, force is equal to mass into acceleration. It is applicable for everyone. It is applicable for each and every situation, each and every geographical location, each and every context. But psychology is different, and that's why I call psychology a discipline with your logical positivism. Our positivism, our rationality is bounded by certain factors. Like here, we saw that personality factor defined our Yerkes-Dodson curve, right? So, individual differences are there. So, ontology, epistemology, under these two, psychology cannot be science. Now, M, methodology. As I told you, the scales we use are not the ratio scales. There is no absolute zero. M is methodology. Under this, you can bring scales. You can also bring the experiments. Largely, our experiments are NER and QER, non-experimental research and quasi-experimental research. Also, because of these two, we use qualitative study. Survey, interview, questionnaire, case study dominates most of our studies, and that is why it's not a science. So the conclusion we reach after so much of analysis, you see, so much of order you have got. If you remember all this and you are able to connect the dots, the overall preparation is there. Now we trace the graph of psychology, that is, where does psychology stand? So we've already seen it in one fashion. Now suppose this is your natural sciences, NS, natural sciences, and these are your abstract science, AS. Abstract science, natural science. Where does psychology lie? The graph of psychology is inclined towards natural sciences. Lesser gap with the natural sciences. More gap with the AS, abstract sciences or abstract discipline. Okay. This is how you give the final conclusion, or you can just draw this graph. Psychology lies here. Here are your natural sciences. Here is your philosophy, Phil. This is psychology. Psychology has traveled this distance. And our next question is regarding this distance only. What is this distance? Psychology originated from philosophy and traveled through different perspectives. What are different perspectives? That will cover through a question. That question is, what is the question here? The question is, trace the history of psychology, majorly highlighting various perspectives it has evolved through. We have to trace how psychology has evolved from your discipline of philosophy to modern psychology, traveling through various perspectives. And what are these perspectives? We have largely covered some of the perspectives. What happened during the original days of psychology? As many other disciplines, psychology also evolved from philosophy. Philosophy, which used the tool of rationalism. Its major debates were like mind, body. Are they separate or they interact? Interactionism or dualism? What actually philosophy was initially studying was the study of, what it was doing is study of, initially in the initial days, study of soul, Atma. Have you seen your soul, or anybody has seen anyone else's soul? The answer is no. So how can we study? The study majorly done under the discipline of philosophy is through rationalism. What is rationalism? They just argue, and their arguments are like whether the soul exists, what are the main constructs of the soul, how does the soul operate. The others will say no, soul does not exist. These kind of argumentations are done, which is basically not at all scientific. Now, after the soul, the focus of many intellectuals shifted from soul to mind. But why are we talking about soul? We have not seen soul. The focus should be on mind. Then again the same method, rationalism, was followed. But since the advent of industrial revolution and focus on scientific experiments, lab-based experiments, the focus of psychology also shifted towards scientific analysis. Psychology established a separate, independent, unique identity as a scientific discipline. So, psychology established your school of structuralism, S. School of structuralism founded by Wilhelm Wundt. The focus of structuralism was not only on the establishment of psychology as a scientific discipline, but on something else. As the name suggests, the structure of not mind. Now they say we have not seen mind. It is futile to study something which we have not seen, which we cannot observe, which cannot break into different parts. So what we can observe and what we can break into parts, or rather feel, not observe. The observation part will come under the behaviorism. So what we can break into parts is not mind, the consciousness. So the proponents of scientific psychology under the school of structuralism said that consciousness should be our subject matter, focus of study, and we can understand the consciousness by analyzing its parts, the parts which have made up consciousness, and the parts can be divided under these: image, affect, and sensation. While we see anything, what images, when we are exposed to any particular stimuli, suppose light, sound, heat, any environmental stimuli. So what will happen? What kind of images run through our consciousness? What emotions we go through? The affect part. Then the sensation. Sensation is like your skin conductivity, the temperature change on your skin, sensation. If we break it down, if we see these parts, analyze it, how? By seeing how they interact with each other and how they make the whole, and the whole is consciousness. Once that analysis is done, through which method and where it will be done? In the lab, because they focused on scientific discipline. So in the lab, in the laboratory. Established by Wilhelm Wundt in Leipzig. Now these things are not very important. What is the place where he established the laboratory? You must know the fundamental aspects. The fundamental aspects are: the consciousness should be the focus of study, from soul to mind to consciousness. And once the consciousness becomes the focus of the study, by analyzing its parts, and the parts are image, affect, and sensation, through the method of introspection. Done by whom? The trained volunteers. And they are trained by whom? They are trained by the experts like Wilhelm Wundt or Titchener, the propounders. Titchener being the disciple, the student of Wilhelm Wundt. These people popularized your structuralism. So these people analyzed what are the constructs, that is the constituent parts of the consciousness, how they interact with each other, and then finally they said that to which direction they are going? Reductionism, reducing your whole experience into small parts, which we can call through various names: elementalism, molecular approach, but they are all same. There is no point repeating it again and again. Molecular, elemental, atomic, whatever you say, the meaning remains same. Breaking it into parts. Reductionism is the core that you must know. The reductionism will be repeated in which school? Again the behaviorism. The behaviorism will repeat these by saying that a complex behavior can be broken into simpler, smaller behavioral dimensions which can be shaped and chained to produce complex behavior. Fine? This is structuralism, method of introspection. Whereas the structuralism focused mainly on your structure of consciousness. So as there is, for every action there is equal and opposite reaction. So they are focusing on the structure. So there came another undercurrent or wave which said, no, why are we focusing on the structure? There were so many other critical aspects of it, like why are we studying consciousness in the first place? The method of study is not scientific, not objective. It's just a subjective analysis through the method of introspection. Although it was called that it is lab based, but it was not a quantitative approach. The reductionism or molecular approach did not give us a feeling of the whole. Complete picture was not presented. And if we analyze from the perspective of this SR and SOR or SIR, internal dimensions, the stimulus what is presented to the trained lab volunteers, then they do some mental processes which is in form of this internal mental processes, then the response is evaluated. So if you look at the SR psychology or the psychology brought by behaviorism, it did not give us an objective analysis. It was still based out of internal mental processes, giving rise to subjectivity. These were the critical aspects against it. Apart from this, there came another school. This is structuralism. There came another school which said that why are we actually looking at the structure of the consciousness? Should we not focus on the function of the consciousness, F, the function? And why did it emerge? The functionalism. Because that was an era of Charles Darwin. Darwinism said that all the organism, all the human beings adapt to the environmental changes, adaptation. So what function the consciousness? Remember, we have not focused from soul to mind to consciousness, but not gone to behaviorism. We are not focusing on behavior, overt behavior right now. We are focusing on consciousness only under the school of functionalism. But what we are looking at, the function of the consciousness. What is the function? What function does it serve? And why it emerged? Because of the emergence of Darwinism. Survival of the fittest. How does it adapt? How does the organism adapt to the environmental stimuli? To serve the purpose of what? Surviving. And that is why it focused more on what? Individual differences. How do I adapt to the environmental changes will be different from how you will adapt to the environmental changes or not, because of our personality factors, because of our learning, because of our socio-cultural upbringing, CRPs. The way the parenting influences or not, yes it does. The kind of previous experience you had, life experience. So individual differences became the focus of the functionalism. And that is why, since individual differences are the focus of functionalism, the functionalism school had a great contribution to make in that education psychology. One factor, because it focused on individual differences. Second factor, because it focused on adaptability. So education is also about the adaptability. What should be the prime value education should add you? How you adapt to the environment. When you are well versed with the discipline, will you adapt to the environment in a better manner or not? That is why lots of knowledge is given. As many people say, this guy is just a well read person, nothing else. But being well read adds so much value to your personality. Being well read adds so much of problem solving techniques and strategies to your day to day life. Adaptability, education. So this functionalism emerged as a second school, but again focused on, I'm just giving you a brief idea because all the schools will anyway cover separately in detail in other parts. And mind you that the 3-4 points which we discussed in our summary are more than enough for you to write a 10 marker, 15 marker, even a 20 marker, because in 20 markers they are going to ask 3-4 parts, in 15 marker 2 parts, in 10 markers one unique aspect which you can definitely cover through these 3-4 points if you remember. The challenge is to remember these 3-4 points only. So rather than running after 10-20 points, run after the 3 prime points. Remember it, prepare it very well before the examination and score well. That's what the essence of this exam is. Now, functionalism also met with lots of challenges, because you see, what did not change was the subject matter. Again, the study matter was consciousness. So, structuralism, and then comes functionalism. The structure of consciousness and function of consciousness. But then came the propounders of a theory who said that the subject matter of our study should be something which is observable, measurable, quantifiable, overt behavior. They said that rather than looking at the mental processes, the intervention of the organism under the SOR or internal mental process SIR, you can either write SOR or you can write SIR, won't matter much. So they believe, the behaviorism school which came later, they believe that we should focus on something which is overt, quantifiable and measurable, and the proof of everything should be there in the lab. That is why you see that whatever experiments we see in the school of behaviorism, Skinner's experiment, operant conditioning, or classical conditioning of Pavlov, all these are largely lab-based experiments. They don't talk about the subjective mental processes. They talk about the quantifiable terms. They also believe that there is something called environmental determinism. Our behavior is determined by the environmental stimuli, S, which gives rise to R, the response. The response, when shaped and changed, the small responses, because they believe on elemental approach, again reductionism. The small behavioral dimensions, small units of behavior, when first you shape a behavior, chain it with a more complex behavior, keep on chaining, and finally in the snowballing approach you will find a rather complex behavior. This is the approach of behaviorism. And why it happened? Because they saw that the subject matter of study under the structuralism and functionalism was both consciousness done in a rather subjective way. There is nothing overt, observable, measurable, quantifiable that we can see here, and that is why there came this school of behaviorism. So you see the tracing of history. SFB. This is the era of determinism even now. Determinism, deterministic. Our behavior is determined by environmental changes. Functionalism says we adapt to that. Behaviorism says there is one-to-one response, one on one. One-on-one, one-to-one, whatever way you want to use. Rather, better idea is to use, see what happens with the English is that people forget what kind of words they are using. One of the teachers recently was saying that rather than doing this marketing and all, you should focus on your existing clients, and then there will be mouth to mouth publicity. Now there is nothing called mouth to mouth publicity. There is word of mouth publicity. So very funnily, innocently spoken by the person, but the sense is that people speak about the experience they had, and that grows your market, grows your clientele. So one-on-one. What is one-on-one? Mirroring. They say mirror approach is there. Like in the changes in the environment happened. "100 decibel is the intensity of the noise in the environment. It changed to 110 decibel. According to behaviorism, there will be equal change in the response also. This kind of straight line is achieved. This is the response, this is the stimuli. The gradient of stimuli changed by 10 decibel. 10 decibel change in the noise. According to this 10 decibel change in the noise, the response will also be shaped according to the intensity change. Same, more 10 decibel increased, likewise 10 units of response you can see on the skin conductivity. How will you measure it? Skin conductivity. GSR, galvanic skin response. You see, they say one-to-one, nothing else. There is no role of O. What is this O or I? Organism. Internal mental processes have nothing to do. Nothing to do with the human behavior. Human behavior is shaped by the stimulus which is existing in the environment, and there is a strong radical determinism of the environment which shapes the behavior of the human being. So human beings were compared with whom? The animal. Like animal, we are also not thinking beings. We just react and respond to the environmental stimuli. This is what is the assumption of behaviorism. So structuralism, functionalism, behaviorism. SFB. Sigmund Freud को ball लगी. Sigmund Freud was hit by a ball, cricket ball. He was playing cricket, he was hit by a ball. After that, what happened? He was taken to PHC, primary health care. What is this primary health care? P say psychoanalytic school. This is the era of determinism. The behaviorism school talked about the determinism of environment. Psychoanalytic school, revolutionized by the genius Sigmund Freud, there emerged a person who changed the perspective of psychology for once and for all. If we study psychology now, we may find him unscientific, we may find his ideas radical, we may find his ideas non-pragmatic, but still we love him. Because he gave us something through which we peeped into your unconscious. Nobody has ever thought that there can be something called talking cure. So much of cathartic emotions inside you, jammed emotion. Catharsis, bundled up with negative emotions, not able to release it, pent up feelings. What are these pent up feelings? Have you heard this Bollywood song, Kab tak छुपाए रखा, शोला दबाए रखा? That शोला दबा के रखने वाला approach is pent up feeling. Pent up feeling, feelings you suppressed. Why did you suppress this body? You suppressed it because these feelings were consonant with the id forces. Id वाले तो बोलेंगे भाई कुछ भी करो आप. Id forces are driven by your biological urges. Urges, biological. The psychic forces which are not within your hands. You are born with a particular negative psychic energy driven by these id urges, which are quite amoral, absolutely non-pragmatic. So you, what do you say? What do you do? You play defense mechanism, defense. How this defense mechanism is played? Freudian slave. Freudian slave. You see your class teacher as a mother figure. So rather than calling her Miss X, Mrs. X, talking about the child, you call her mother or mama. What does it show? You actually have great affection towards your teacher, but when you look at her, you compare her with your mother. So you actually wanted the motherly care to be in the class and you take her name. More blunt example, you are on your honeymoon. In one of the finest moments, when you should have called out the name of your husband or wife, you call the name of your ex. Because you are still thinking about the person. The feelings attached with that person is suppressed. Suppression of emotion is the biggest cause of all the problems in the world. Suppression. But it emerged, you unintendedly spoke the name of this person. Freudian slip. These kind of analysis gave a peep inside something which is called unconscious. Sigmund Freud says this is your conscious. He says this is nothing, just the tip of the iceberg. What lies beneath your personality, what shapes your personality is something which is there inside, that's unconscious. And your subconscious, subcon. It gets expression in your conscious sometimes in Freudian slip. That happens. So you see, there came an era from structuralism, functionalism, now behaviorism, P, psychoanalytic approach. The psychoanalytic approach again believed on what? Determinism, of course. But still, largely, what we are talking about is determinism. Here the biological environmental determinism, here also adaptive determinism, adaptation, driven by environment, driven by something which is outside our organism. So there came a sheer force of humanistic psychology who said, what are you talking about? Why should we be worried only about the determinism? You should not be worried about that. There is a free will. Free will. There is no determinism. Meri marji approach. What I wish, I'll do. We are born with the tendencies, the potentialities to achieve this. Self-actualization. The positive forces shape us. We focus on growth. We are not negative human beings driven by psychic determinism or biological determinism or environmental stimuli. We take the call. The stimuli can be anything, but how to react is in our hands. And largely we are driven by what? Humanistic forces, free will, and we want to achieve our innate tendencies of self-actualization, which later on Maslow summarized. Maslow, human needs, hierarchy of human needs. How? These are your basic needs, these are your esteem needs. Basic needs, esteem needs, and this is actualization. In terms of what Roger gave, Roger says that this is our real self, who we are actually, and this is our ideal self, who we want to become. When there is high degree of congruence between these two, that is, this is real self and this is your ideal self, lots of congruence. Actually, it happens when you are accepting about your weaknesses, when you accept your weaknesses. And strengths as you are. You see, there is a similarity between these two. The people who are behaving in an actualized manner are the people who have achieved that synchronicity when they say that I am what I am and I do what I do. I don't bother about what 10 people will say. Na apman ka bhai, na samman ka moh. Then you achieve this. When you are so much bothered about what others are saying about you, then you lose the game actually. So the humanistic forces said that no, we are not born with the dark forces, with the determinism of psychic determinism, of biological or environmental determinism. We can determine our own future through the free will. Right? Humanistic psychology. Then came another school which actually revolutionized the complete understanding of psychological discipline because of the advent of what? Computers. Information processing approach given by cognitive psychology. So here it is, S F B P H C. What is this C? Cognitive. Cognitivism is not only a perspective, it's a revolution. It changed the way we think about psychology. It said no, again we are going in the wrong direction. Why should we not compare ourselves with the computers? So we are human beings. There is an information in terms of stimulus. The internal mechanism is there. We process the information and then there is a response. Cognitivism changed the way we look at psychology by bringing modern techniques. As we see nowadays, AI, artificial intelligence, psycho-cybernetic approach. What is psycho-cybernetic approach? By the way, we keep on saying. Psycho-cybernetics approach says that we as human beings are driven by feedback. What is feedback? Which you keep on taking. Sir, बता दो मेरा ऐसे कैसा है? इससे पूछो मेरा ethics कैसा जा रहा? अपने आप से पूछो. Ask yourself. Are you satisfied with your answer which you have written? Are you satisfied with your preparation? The day when you become satisfied, and see, that's why I tell you, there is an unscientific approach through which the preparation is being done. Every preparation, whether it is IIT, whether it is IAS, whether it is IIM, everything is gameable. When we say it is gameable, everything is predictable. Believe me, everything is predictable. The dendora of unpredictability is played by the people who want you to remain insecure, who don't want you to look at something which is predictable, who don't want to give you a closure. It is highly predictable. There is a syllabus, there are PYQs. You have certain level at which you are standing right now. You need to be upgraded to this level, or there are certain people who are already at this level. They are degraded by such unpredictable dendora people. So the idea is that be smart. Whatever course you are joining, whatever test series you are doing, before that do a planning, do your analysis, then only proceed further. If you are here, you have to be proceeded to the level of success, and you must be given a closure. This much is to be prepared. This much I have prepared now. I am fully confident I'll crack the exam. God forbid if you don't clear, just repeat the process with a different perspective and you will clear. But if you are into this loop of uncertainty, which questions your own ability, you keep on losing the confidence, and one day comes when you think, I don't know what to do. And at the end of the day, this is just an examination. This is not your test. This is not the test of your abilities. You failed 99 times and you are rising up at the 100th time, getting up and saying that yes, I can fight. Show me what to do. Then life will choose you. If you have the guts to say that, okay, this is my exam, these are the set of books or material, these are the kind of practice I have to do, this is the time I have, I'll be practicing accordingly, and nobody on this earth is going to be better than me in completing the task. That day, that very day, you have got the ability to crack the exam. So first and foremost, be motivated, and the motivation will not come from your environment, it will come from within you. keep yourself positive, give yourself positive feedback, complete this loop, that track. We'll cover many other aspects in the next class through this approach only. There will be apart from this preparation through questions, PTQ, there will be PYQs discussion, also significant PYQs in a separate block I will discuss on my YouTube channel, which you all must like, subscribe, share. As I say, I don't say you share it because it's up to your understanding. Then also this PYQ discussion will not be limited only to psychology, but it will be for essay and ethics paper as well. And mind you, there are lots of issues as far as this. See, psychology definitely has issues. As I say, that psychology has not suffered because of neither the student nor the UPSC, but the way it is being dealt by many of the teachers. So the perspective, the approach should have changed. So definitely we are here to change it. Then the essay part and ethics, these two also have not been dealt in the right manner, unfortunately, by many of the platforms. So you need to understand your optional, in our case it is psychology, plus essay plus ethics, which forms the 1000-mark Troika, is the most essential of all the aspects which can fetch you 600 marks from these three if you follow the right technique. And as I told you, it is not uncertain, not at all. It is being made uncertain by certain people. So break this mold, come up with a smart strategy and ace this exam. It's not that tough.